conversation for the morning. Now, the federal government, through the Transmission Company of Nigeria, will disconnect 13. Listen carefully. 13 electricity companies from the national grid. It is reported that the disconnection plan is because of the failure of the affected companies to make remittances of ancillary services bills. According to reports, the failure of discos to remit service bills is because of debts owed by consumers, and by consumers I mean you, right? I'm talking about you right now. Yeah. So as a result of this planned disconnection, electricity consumers being served by the affected companies may experience blackout. Okay, and the notice of disconnection has been served to the affected electricity companies, and they include Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, Benin, Enugu, Ibadan, Ikeja, Jos, Kaduna, Kano, Port Harcourt, electricity distribution companies, as well as a company called APL Electricity Company in Aba, and Ajakuta Steel Company, which is special electricity customer. Meanwhile, the defaulting electricity generating companies are Niger Delta Power Holding Company Plant and Paras Energy. Joining us to talk about this morning is a lawyer and executive coordinator, NEPA Wahala Nigeria, and he joins us via phone this morning. I'm talking about Emeka Ojoko. Good morning to you, Emeka, and thanks for joining on the Low FM Morning Show today.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you for being there. Of course, let's begin with this. First is understanding what exactly this is and how this is going to impact Nigerians. Let's get your thoughts on this move by the federal government through the Transmission Company of Nigeria to disconnect 13 electricity distribution companies, and how that would affect Nigerians who are the consumers.
Okay. Well, as you summarized, the market operator has given notice to the discos. Okay, that 60 days notice to the discos that they are going to be disconnected for breach of the market rules. The market rules in question are payments, remittances for services rendered, and then for failure to provide and pay bank guarantees to support the operations. Now, on the disco's end, part of the reason why they say they have failed to abide by the market rules is their liquidity position caused by non-payment from customers. Now, what we must realize in all this is that the biggest debtor to the discos is the government. Right? If you check on their books, okay, most government ministries, parastatals and all that, they are owing the discos a huge amount of them, and the discos cannot disconnect them. I'm sure you've seen episodes where some of the discos have attempted to disconnect military barracks, and you know what happens when such things occur. Okay, so the biggest debtor to the discos is the government, and it's the same government that's trying to disconnect other customers for the failure of government to pay its own debt to the companies. You know, so it's I don't know how to describe this, but chicken and egg situation that we are looking at here, right? Where even though yes, we know customers are owing, right? Customers are owing the discos. Some of the discos as well have been taken over by the banks that fronted the owners' loans to buy the companies at the inception. Kaduna and Kano are two cases in point, and they are part of the list of companies that the TCN has said they want to disconnect. So it's if it happens, and I hope it doesn't, right? Customers are going to suffer, right? Customers are going to suffer, okay, because as I said, the government is the one who's owing the bulk of the debt, and then the government is the one who's also threatening to disconnect for non-payment of the debt. I'm sure that's why the Minister of Power had to get involved, right, to put a truce when the market operator sanctioned some of the discos last week. So that's where we are.
Alrighty. You mentioned, and I think that's maybe one of the most important parts of this conversation, those who would be affected and the consumers, the direct consumers in this case, Nigerians. And we know that there are persons who have not even enjoyed, who even at the moment aren't enjoying sufficient power supply. When this eventually happens, hopefully, like you mentioned, won't happen. We might have even further complications in our hands. But do you think that Nigerians, which is maybe a flip side to this conversation, the Senate was speaking. The Senate, did say that, first is the fact that before the Senate, let me mention what the Minister of Power, whom you reference in your submission, said that Nigerians don't pay enough for power supply. Like, we pay the lowest when it comes to that. Let's very quickly get your thoughts on that first.
Well, that's the minister's opinion. I mean, what do you pay for poor power supply, right? Right now, what the discos are trying to do, what NEC is trying to do, right, is to migrate us to what they call a cost-reflective tariff regime, right, where you pay different amounts per unit depending on the hours of availability that you have. But we're seeing a situation where the discos are routinely, and I use that word advisedly, routinely abusing this cost-reflective tariff regime, right? Somebody who's getting maybe like a maximum of 8 hours supply a day is being billed for supply of 12 hours per day. Somebody who's getting maybe 12 is being billed as if he's getting 20 hours per day, right? And then the regulator NEC is not doing anything much to police the discos to ensure that customers are actually paying the right price for the right amount of supply availability, right? It's a terrible situation. Okay, I'm suffering it myself, and quite a few other people as well, right? And then part of what the NEC has done, okay, is to also place what they call a cap on for those who are not metered, right? A cap on what the disco is supposed to charge you every month for the supply, and then the discos routinely, and I use the word again, routinely abuse those caps, and because customers don't know. Right, they don't know that there's a limit to what they're supposed to charge, and they just get these bills, and the bills keep on piling up. They keep piling up. I mean, if I get a bill for instance of 150,000 naira or 100,000 naira for a bedroom apartment, I'm not going to pay that bill. I will pay it. I will pay what I feel that I use. Right. So that's part of the situation where the discos are saying that customers are not paying. How do you expect somebody to pay a bill which he knows is not a proper bill? So you have improper billing practices and then concomitant non-payment by the customers. So these are the situations in the industry where that lead to this phenomena where they say there's huge debt and all that. Customers are not paying because customers don't feel satisfied with the quality of service that they are getting, and then the size of the bills that are levied on them.
Yeah, that's one side of this coin, right? The other side of this coin would be the fact that consumers maybe don't pay enough. For example, Ibadan Electricity Company have said that they're unable to meet their financial obligations to the electricity value chain due to poor payment and huge outstanding bills from consumers. We'll talk about this flip side in a moment. Let's go on a very short break, and we'll be back. To stay tuned.
This is Law FM 103.9,
where we take your business from where it is to where it should be.
You are listening to Law FM 103.9. Don't touch that dial.
For this Naija wey we dey so, say you no hold cash no mean say wahala dey o. You wan send money to Male for Villa, just use Momo. You wan buy recharge card or data, just use Momo. You wan pay for market wey you buy, just use Momo. You fit use Momo run plenty things without cash, as long as you get Momo account. No cash, no wahala, and e dey easy to open o. Just dial *671# to open Momo account. Set your PIN, transfer money from your bank account inside your Momo account. Make you fit dey pay for anything, send and receive money sharp because life dey simple with Momo.
When you listen to this station, you learn about your rights, you discover the law in ways you never imagined. You know why? Because we broadcast in your interest.
It's a problem that we are all experiencing in the country. Different parts of the country, the same thing is happening. So who do we call on to? Who do we hold responsible?
We impact knowledge.
If the grid is unable to shed the load that it ought to, it could also result in the collapse of the national grid.
Call it what you may, but we are here to stay. The law was never biased, so why should it be now? To every individual, we are Law FM 103.9.
There are no regional electricity boards.
And discover what you can do right now.
All the youths in Nigeria, let me assure you that no matter what you are going through, the future is bright. You are the future. You have the power to create the future. Don't let anybody use you as gangster or thug or violent political followers. Just stay within the law. And by the grace of God, Nigeria will be better. I'm Olufemi Pedro, and you are listening to Law FM 103.9 for knowledge and entertainment.
What's up, people? It's your boy Goya Man. You want to bamba? You want to chill with the big boys? If you want to chill with the big boys, keep listening to Law FM 103.9 for knowledge and entertainment.
Check and see how the thing goes.
Okay, 59 minutes gone past 9 a.m. This beautiful morning. It is still the Law FM Morning Show, and of course, we still have with us our guest in person of Emeka Ojoko, a lawyer and executive coordinator of NEPA Wahala NG. So we are still talking about the federal government disconnecting discourse from national grid over debt, and we still have Emeka Ojoko discussing this with us. Thank you so much for staying with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, before we went on that break, Kingsley was asking a question we wanted you to explore after the break. So,
yeah, I'm sure you can still remember. So I was just talking about the fact that even discos themselves are complaining that consumers are not paying when they consume electricity they don't pay. What do you have to say about that, and how that is affecting their ability to fulfill their financial obligations in the entire value chain?
Yes, I think I mentioned this when I was speaking earlier, that the customers feel cheated, so they won't pay. Now, the bulk of the customers in the industry are unmetered. They're unmetered. So when the customer is levied a bill that is grossly overestimated, he won't pay that bill. Now, the most efficient mode of revenue assurance for the discos is metering. Okay, they don't meter the customers, so they can't get back the monies that the payments for supply made. Customers will not pay because the customers feel cheated by those excess bills. Now the bills are racking up; they are being counted as debt on the discos. The generation companies have supplied XYZ units of power. Right, the market operator is putting this as debt that the discos are owing, and then the customers, they look, we didn't incur this bill. 80% of the customers in the industry are not metered. Forget about those figures that NEC put out there. 80%, well over 80% are not metered. And without meters, you cannot have 100% revenue assurance. So it's true, customers are not paying because they feel cheated. Okay, poor customer service on the part of the discos. Very poor revenue drive practice on their part. So the customers will not pay, and then the situation continues until the discos get to the point where they can meter all the customers before you can have maybe better or reduce the ATTC and fee losses on their part.
Alrighty, so there you go. Yeah, I mean, we'll see, and let's wrap the conversation on this. Also, talking about the impact this would have if the transmission company of Nigeria eventually goes through with this, and that is, the loss of confidence from would-be investors interested in buying, or just for want of better words, buying into these discos. Of course, some of these discos are struggling already. I did mention the fact that the electricity company did come out to say that we're struggling with finances, and that's a major thing. You'll recall that there was a sort of takeover a few months ago. So would this, in your opinion, also impact or have an impact on the confidence level potential investors would have in the entire sector?
Yes, it would. Investors are looking at the sector and they're asking themselves, if we get involved in this, right, how are we sure that the money that we put in, we will get it back? What level of government interference in the industry? And believe me, government interference is high, right? I put the blame for the situation squarely at the feet of the government, As I said earlier, they are the biggest debtors to the discos, and they are the ones who are also threatening to disconnect them for debt that the government is itself owing to them. So right now, I don't think many foreign investors will be looking with any kind of eagerness at the Nigerian electricity market. Excessive government interference, excessive political interference. The market operator is doing what it should do in this situation, right, by sanctioning the discos, right? But as I said, they are sanctioning them for something that was caused by the government. So how do you look at a situation like that? So it's and if they go ahead, although I don't think that will happen, the impact is going to be huge on the economy. It's going to be huge on customers. Okay, power is the bedrock of any economy, of the manufacturing sector, of any production of goods and services.
Of course.
So if people have to look to other means to source power for themselves, what's going to happen to the prices of goods and services? They're going to go up. And with the current inflationary trend, you can't. It's better imagined how this would have impact on you and I if everything that we depend on for our day-to-day living suddenly goes up.
Hopefully it doesn't get to the point when the situation becomes dire.
Hopefully
But
it doesn't get to
yes, of course. I really want to appreciate you and thank you for your time on the program this morning, Emeka Ojoko. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, do have a lovely day ahead. Okay, the discussion does not end. Of course, we still have another topic to bring to the fore on the Law FM Morning Show discussion segment right here. All you have to do is stay close. Don't touch that dial for any reason. We'll take a short breather, and when we return, we'll be joined by our second guest. Do stay with us.
This is Law FM 103.9.
And discover what you can do right now.
All the youths in Nigeria, let me assure you that no matter what you are going through, the future is bright. You are the future. You have the power to create the future. Don't let anybody use you as gangster or thug or violent political followers. Just stay within the law. And by the grace of God, Nigeria will be better. I'm Olufemi Pedro, and you are listening to Law FM 103.9 for knowledge and entertainment.
When you listen to this station, you learn about your rights. You discover the law in ways you never imagined. You know why? Because we broadcast in your interest.
It's a problem that we are all experiencing in the country. Different parts of the country, the same thing is happening. So who do we call on to? Who do we hold responsible?
We impact knowledge.
If the grid is unable to shed the load that it ought to, it could also result in the collapse of the national grid.
Call it what you may, but we are here to stay. The law was never biased, so why should it be now? To every individual, we are Law FM 103.9.
There are no internal electricity boards.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Raquel H, aka Your Money's Mine, aka My Money's Mine. What up? You're listening to Law FM 103.9, your station for knowledge and entertainment.
And everything is super dope.
Hold on tight.
I'm Olufemi Pedro.
I'm Omoyele Showore.
My name is Honorable Akim Dixon.
This is Honorable Adekunle Akobada.
I'm Dele Momodu, and you are listening to Law FM 103.9 for knowledge and entertainment. The only law radio station.
The passion to be creative, innovative, to climb higher and take the lead is what drives us on the station that inspires. This is Law FM 103.9 for knowledge and entertainment.
When you listen to this station, you learn about your rights. You discover the law in ways you never imagined. You know why? Because we broadcast in your interest.
It's a problem that we are all experiencing in the country. Different parts of the country, the same thing is happening. So who do we call on to? Who do we hold responsible?
We impact knowledge.
If the grid is unable to shed the load that it ought to, it could also result in the collapse of the national grid.
Call it what you may, but we are here to stay. The law was never biased, so why should it be now? To every individual, we are Law FM 103.9.
There are no internal electricity boards.
Ladies and gentlemen,
this is
Rotimi Martins, aka Larry of Africa. You're listening to Law FM 103.9 for knowledge and entertainment.
Hold on tight.
I'm Olufemi Pedro.
I'm Omoyele Showore.
My name is Honorable Akim Dixon.
This is Honorable Adekunle Akobada.
I'm Dele Momodu, and you are listening to Law FM 103.9 for knowledge and entertainment. The only law radio station.
Ten minutes past 10. This is the FM Morning Show. Glad to have you there. Kingsley Bass is my name. Beatrice Inim also on the program, as well as Council Felix Uzoma. We're talking, major big stories in the news. We've just concluded the conversation around the possible disconnection of discos from the national grid and what that means for you as a consumer, electricity consumer, basically. Now that would impact the entire electricity value chain in Nigeria. Would now switch gears to our next conversation for the morning.
Yes, our next conversation for the morning straight up is with this recent approval that's been given by the Senate and as well as the House of Representatives for the President Buhari's administration approving a whopping sum of 22.72 trillion naira for the government's ways and means. We want to see the impact of this approval on the government as well as the citizens. Do citizens have any, role to play in this? What is the impact? How would Nigerians stand to benefit? How would Nigerians stand to either benefit or lose from this particular approval? And to discuss this is Olusesan Okunade. He is our guest for this current segment. Olusesan Okunade is a public affairs analyst, and we have him right on phone. Good morning, Mr. Sheson.
KSB, good morning, Philip, and to all our listeners. Good morning. Glad to be with you this Friday.
Fantastic. Right. Thanks for joining the conversation. You can also be part of the conversation there. You can send in WhatsApp messages via studio lines, or you can send that via text as well, or just join the Facebook live broadcast going on right now. We're streaming facebook.com/law FM 103.9. Okay, drop your comments there. We'll be taking them as we go on. But hey, Sheson, let's begin your thoughts on this particular topic.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kingsley. I want to say that the approval received by the federal government for the 22.7 trillion naira, it's coming with a lot of mixed reaction, considering the fact that we had currently a debt value risen as much as 47 trillion. And they're bringing this to bear. And don't forget, we just received another what we could not clarify whether it's a loan or grant to the tune of $800 million as regards the relief for the subsidy removal that we are preparing for in June. Which we learned that temporarily they are putting that on hold. Plus and minus, let's first establish that the debt ratio come about this administration is far beyond the threshold set by the Constitution. We say 5% of a particular revenue should be something that we should have as loan and facility. But we have actually outstretched that, and it's coming even at the closure of an existing government, at the exit of an existing government, where an incumbent or a new administration is coming on board. It's what is quite worrisome as we speak. Part of the challenges we have faced that we analysts have actually questioned is the transparency of some of our transactions as government to the citizen. If we understand what some of this money are meant for, we will be able to trace it. I have a slogan which I do tell them to do: follow the money. You are able to have a direct follow-up of saying that this money we are borrowing is meant for infrastructure. Okay, which infrastructure are you making this provision for? Which project are you making this borrowing for? Then we can be able to monitor the closure time of some of the things that will happen. But we've not been having that, and that's the lack of transparency that is giving some of us the worrisome of saying, why will you want to get this loan at the exit of an administration? I know some people have said governance is continuum, but at the same time, I think we should minimize the burden for the incoming administration.
All right. Thank you very much for that, opener. If you look at the CBN's Act, the CBN's Act Section 38 provides that the central bank has the powers to grant temporary advances to the federal government. We are just looking at the legal perspective. You have said that in granting this loan, it should not, exceed 5%, and that's even what the Act provides. What are the challenges or the legal implication of this, crossing this threshold?
Well, I'm sure you know when we talk about law and the consequences of defaulting certain things that are entrenched in the law. Federal government has not been respecter of these certain things, and that's why some of us are so much concerned on the people at the helm of affairs having respect and regard for the constituted law. I'm sure you know this played out. It took a long while we're talking about the cash crunch, redesigning of currency before they yielded to the pressure of the Supreme Court ruling, which actually affected a lot of businesses. Fine, the judiciary can be questioned. People can engage them that this has happened, but what are the what are the punishments that you serve to those that actually carried out that illegality to serve as deterrent? You discover that has not been happening, and that's why we've seen a lot of corruption, thriving in the country, impoverishing the masses the more, and that's the challenge that we are faced with. The legal implication is, even if you come out with a ruling, how many of the ruling has the administration obeyed? We don't know of the incoming administration, but for this administration, that is a challenge, and that's why they can go all out to actually exceed that particular portion as stipulated in the Act of CBN by going all out to act in excess of what that actually stipulated.
All right, Sheson, I'd like to. You did mention, the fact that President Buhari has approached the Senate for a loan just few days to his handover ceremony to the incoming administration. But is this loan, as we know, this approval rather of this loan, a fresh one, or it is something that has been used already by the administration and just fulfilling all righteousness by seeking the approval of the National Assembly? What details should we know as regards this?
Yeah, well, to the best of my knowledge, the loan is not something that has actually they may have been requesting, and they are just getting the approval. But I don't think that the expense has actually been made, because if you require a loan, what commitment are you going to give to your creditors that will give them that warranty to approve project to the tune of this? So I feel it's a fresh request from the federal government to the National Assembly, which has been approved, and we saw that played out in 2018 towards the end of that administration. But our concern was now is that there's a change of baton. Then there was continuity in the personality that was actually ruling, but now there's change of baton from one person to the other, and it becomes questionable that should have actually been left in the hand of the incoming administration to weigh the pros and cons of whether to go for the loan, or there are other strategic things they need to do. Like, some of us faulted the issue of the money they collected for the subsidy removal. That, okay, you got the approval, you got the money, and you was like, things will not work the way as planned, and you might actually be extending the subsidy period. So these are certain things that are quite questionable to our leaders, and we keep asking that where there is a system, definitely you should expect that transparency and accountability would be the watchword. And they're flouting the rules or the law of the land. It's not something that should be heard from our leaders. But because there are no deterrent, there are no punitive measures, there are no punishment for those that actually default, it has become a culture. And that's what is actually promoting corruption, of which we feel the incoming administration will look critically into it by strengthening the judiciary to make sure that people that flout or violate the stipulated constitution laws in the constitution are punished decisively, and that will serve as deterrent and reduce the level at which those abuses are being committed.
We're taking contribution 0703 227 7338 or 0905. I beg your pardon, 0909 555 1039. You can also send in WhatsApp messages. We'll take them as we go. What you make of this fresh approvals by the National Assembly to the tune of
yes, 72 trillion.
Yeah, I mean heavy for me, right? Heavy, so I don't get depressed. Heavy figures.
Don't let it be too heavy for you. Just call the figure.
heavy figures. And I just saw in your first submission, you mentioned. I think you were trying to put the figure. I think it was heavy for you too as well. The total debt burden the country currently has is to a tune of 77 trillion naira total debt burden at the moment. I guess that was also heavy for you to mention at the time when you were struggling with the figures, but that's about that's about that. Keep those calls coming in, and of course keep your thoughts coming in via socials. We're streaming on Facebook as well. You can drop a comment there, and would love to hear from you as regards this. You can also join thoughts with the first conversation, which was on electricity and the possible blackout that could happen in the country if the transmission company of Nigeria decides to disconnect discos, 13 affected discos across the country. So we have a chat, rather in the coming days, we would have a new administration just in about 25 days from now. As a matter of fact, the countdown has started for many persons in several quarters. So we would have a new administration. Let's talk about this debt burden. And like you've mentioned, in this administration, we've seen them go over and over again, go against the provisions of the law as to the way they do things, especially when it comes to financing. What is your thought, your advice for the incoming administration as to how to manage finances, especially because the president-elect is an accountant? Can we afford a situation where we're defaulting again?
Thank you very much, KSB. I want to say that the president-elect, like you said, and I'm alluding to it, is a senior colleague. Aside being an accountant, he's a strategic thinker who knows how to meander. One thing I want to state categorically is that this administration, outgoing administration, actually admitted that bulk of those money were actually used for infrastructure. So I want to believe that if you are able to tame that big devil that beveled us in the eye, which is insecurity, and put some of the infrastructure that this current administration have actually done, it's going to increase the productivity and will definitely get more revenue in terms of taxes and the relief of making sure that the welfare of the citizens are there. So we may not be borrowing more because some of the infrastructure that needs to drive the economy has actually been put in place, and all this administration needs to do is to ride on it. That is one. The other aspect of it is that give it to the president-elect. When he came to Lagos, he had that understanding of finance and how to generate that finance with minimal cost, and they're giving value for what it is. I'm sure you know that Lagos became a case study for other states to emulate, and it's part of his achievements that others are actually built on, that has actually given the face that Lagos is having currently. So I have no doubt in my mind that the value you call of about 77 trillion, as we have it, is something that he will work around with his think tank and his lieutenant to see how we achieve the flow of.
All right, Shiso. Okay, lost connections there, and maybe that's just unfortunately, though. That's the much we can take on the show. Not a fine place to leave things, but we cannot have Shiso back as we've got to go in a moment. But guys, two major conversations. Let's very quickly in closing. A final thought on this.
Yeah, for me,
imagine getting home. Yeah, sorry, Beatrice. Imagine getting home in coming days and not see power. First of all,
I can't even imagine it because I don't know what would happen. I mean, it's going to affect my mental state of mind very much because I mean, electricity is very, very important. We need it for daily living, to run our businesses, for every little thing you can think of. So I just really hope that does not happen, because it's going to have a bad ripple effect on the citizens and of course on the economy by extension.
Alrighty, let's take this call as we wrap the conversation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning. This is Mazi line.
Good morning. Welcome, Mazi.
What's the CCN intention in throwing Nigeria into darkness? In the coming day, what's your contention?
Non-payments. They said the
discourse
have not been paid.
The concession will not get to them. They're still under federal government. And where do they want to give blackout? Do you include Aso Rock? Is it for the pharmacy?
Has the Aso Rock been living on TCN's power? That's one question too we need to ask.
Because they will take it for where you can living. But where others they will not take it like this. So it's affect them. If they want to do, let them do it in a proper way. So A and B will be affected as well. So they will not do their reasons and then work on it. Not when you live at Aso Rock. I live in my town. I take life to where I live in the suburb. No. That will not be okay.
Right.
If they want to go, let them make it general. Because I wouldn't make their consent. They are still under federal government. Are they not paid? Ajere is a standing human being. So they should look into it. Thank you. I don't have much.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Guys, we've got to go. But as we go, let's remember that the Senate is saying that government agencies, the military, also all electricity firms, and maybe that's a fine place to leave things. No more, no less. Let's leave it there. Drop mic. All right, that's a conversation on the Law FM Morning Show this Friday, and indeed for the entire week. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation here on the station for knowledge and entertainment. We do hope that you've at least gotten a lot, enough information to build on and make informed decisions when you want to have conversations about policies of government in Nigeria. But thanks indeed for being there. Until next week, we appreciate you being there. Keep the conversation going via socials as well.
All right, as much as we have to go, you don't go anywhere. Keep your radio close, all right? It's a fabulous Friday, so we have fabulous stuff lined up for you right here on your station for knowledge and entertainment. It is Law FM 103.9, and signing out is Beatrice Inem.
Kingsley Bass is my name.
And I am Uzoma Felix.
Bye for now.
When you listen to this station, you learn about your rights.